you. Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nick Gregath, Greg Smith. We're hanging out with you from Gregath and Smith on ESPN 1480. Doing a quick video blog real quick today as it is the day before signing day. And it was kind of a good day, kind of a bad day, Greg.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a mixed bag with the results today. You have a guy that's a big-time player, Lamar Jackson, that commits to the team, but then you have a little bit of disappointment as well as you lose a couple of guys that really could have helped booster this squad the last couple of days.
All right, so Nebraska, for those keeping track at home, gets Lamar Jackson. He's out of California. Lamar Jackson, a lot of people are saying, is the #1 safety on the board in the nation, so that's a big win for Nebraska.
Yeah, that's a huge win. Whenever you get a guy that's even in the conversation of the top players at their position in the nation, you always count that as a win. It matters for, PR sake if he's the #1 rated guy in the nation at his position. But as long as you're up there in that top 3, top 5, you got yourself a really quality player. Basically, he could have named his school that he wanted to go to, and he chose to come to Nebraska. One of the big things is that he loved the fans. He really went out of his way to mention playing in front of 90,000 strong. That'll be a blessing and a curse. He'll find out really soon. But for right now, he loves it.
All right, I'm not going to lie. First of all, I'm enjoying this port wine while we're talking about this from James Arthur Vineyard. Shout out to my friends. But Fitzpatrick yesterday, Des Fitzpatrick, ends up not coming to Nebraska. I think a lot of people are disappointed. I know Fitzpatrick's dad was not happy with the response of some of the Husker fans that were tweeting at him. But for the most part, I would say Husker Nation was not crazy when it came to tweeting at the recruits. But I feel like that's a loss for Nebraska, Greg, because as we talked about before, they need a big receiver. They've got a bunch of small, fast, DEPE style receivers. They need a big receiver, and they missed on him.
Yeah, you don't ever want to miss on that wide-body receiver that can kind of complete your receiving core, right? You're right. They already have DPE on the roster. They got a couple of guys in Spielman and Grimm that are coming into this class that are seen as more of those, I guess, if you think about the slot type of receivers. So, yeah, you need to have that kind of guy. Plus, he was a very highly touted guy, ends up going to Louisville, a place that has put out NFL wide receivers, year after year, it seems like. So it's a good fit for him if he wants to get to the next level, though I'd argue Nebraska is the same type of place, but maybe a little bit of bias creeping in on that one. But you would like to have that kid, but they just missed out on him.
Yeah, something to keep an eye on too, and it's not going to make a difference in his recruiting, but it's kind of interesting that right after he put out that really stupid and bad video that he put out yesterday. I don't care if that thing said Nebraska, if it had said Louisville, or if it had said, I don't care, Marquette, which I get it. They don't have a football team. But that was a dumb video. I will say, though, when it comes to him, I think it stinks because as Mike Schaefer and a couple other guys in the recruiting world have tweeted out, Nebraska seems to be losing out on the guys that are the silent commits. I think that's something not to freak out over, but to put in your back pocket moving forward and pay attention to for future recruiting classes. It's not like Nebraska is the only one that happens to, but 2 out of 3 per. The last tweet I saw was Mike Schaefer who said this, but 2 out of 3 silent commits that they had ended up backing out, it's an interesting thing.
Yeah, and I think that the other one that they got was Lamar Jackson, the safety from California, and then the one that they lost, I think, was David Reese, the linebacker that ended up at Florida. That everyone assumed that he was coming here. Like everybody thought when it came down to him being an early enrollee that he was going to go ahead and commit to Nebraska. It just didn't happen, especially in a position where you needed some top end talent. But it is something to keep. I like the way you put it. Keep it in your back pocket. For future reference, because that's going to be something that could come back to bite them.
All right, the last one before we get out of here, Isaiah Simmons out of Kansas City ends up committing to Clemson. Not going to lie, kind of annoying that Clemson jumped in late, although they were in the national championship game, so they got a little sway with the recruits right now. A lot of people saw him on a big stage, but Clemson jumps in late, ends up getting him. He doesn't come to Nebraska. Big deal or not that this was in Kansas City and it was a player that was within their 500-mile radius they always talk about?
I think it's a medium deal because you want
way to walk
those guys
that fence, Greg.
Yeah, let's listen. That's what I do that like a pro, man. You want to get those guys that are in the radius, right? But at the same time, and you wanted to get a bigger, more dynamic receiver. But it's difficult for me to say that this was the huge loss. And maybe this is an expectations type of a situation where Fitzpatrick, I thought that he was a guy that was definitely going to come here. So you felt a little more disappointed when he doesn't choose to. So I think it's more just from a perspective of you want the guys that are in that 500-mile radius, especially this staff has talked so much about getting those guys in that radius.
All right, guys, that's really quick. We just wanted to jump on. This is Gregath and Smith. I'm Nick Gregath. He's Greg Smith. Tomorrow we got a big lineup, by the way. Nate Klaus from HuskerOnline.com joining the show, and then your guy from ESPN as well, right?
Yeah, Austin Ward will also join the show. He covers the Big Ten for ESPN.com. He'll be on at 9:30.
All right, man, I got some more of this port wine to go drink. It's a snow day outside. I want to go relax, but while we were off, we're going to try to do these videos more often and just put them out on Twitter. You can check them out on YouTube as well. There's a Gregath and Smith YouTube channel. But for Greg Smith, I'm Nick Gregath. 9 a.m. tomorrow. Make sure you get in on ESPN 1480. It's Gregath and Smith.